monitors are everywhere at the moment, and on paper, loads of them look great. 4K, creator claims, HDR stickers, USB-C, big color numbers, all that kind of stuff. But once you actually live with most of them, the same thing keeps popping up. Text isn't as sharp as expected, scaling feels a bit weird, and if you're on Mac like me, you'll really start to notice it. Well, this one here takes a different approach, because this is a 27-inch true 5K monitor, for the kind of money you normally associate with a decent 4K one. And that immediately sounds suspicious, doesn't it? Well, at first glances, I honestly didn't take this too seriously, mainly because KTC isn't exactly the first brand you think of when you say Retina-style monitors. It felt like one of those products that looks amazing on a spec sheet, and then you get it in person, and well, it's not. But after actually using it properly for a couple of weeks now, with macOS scaling the way it's supposed to, doing real work on it, reading text all day, editing, and much more, it really started to make a lot more sense. This is the KTC H27P3. So the headline here is simple: 27-inch IPS, 5120 by 2880 at 60 Hz, and a dual mode where you can drop to 2560 by 1440p and run 120 Hz if you want smoother motion. It is very much positioned as a studio display alternative. Not in the sense that it's going to match Apple's build or extras, but in the sense of that retina sharp 27-inch desktop experience without the Apple money part. And the other big part of the pitch is a USB-C one cable desktop setup. One cable is all you need. But the burning question is, even though it's cheap, is it still worth it? So is this product truly worth that asking price? Well, let's first start by unboxing it. So unboxing this and you get the monitor itself, the stand, power adapter, and the usual cables. Nothing really over the top here, what you'd expect for the asking price really, but everything has been neatly packed and feels considered. Now first impressions are, honestly, pretty solid. The panel and front presentation looks clean, thin bezels, not overly gamer-like, but not covered in RGB nonsense. It does have an overall clean, minimalistic look. Now the first thing you will notice is the stand. It is fine, it does the job, but it is tilt only. It's not exactly the kind of stand that allows you to pivot this all over the place. So if you are a person who does care about ergonomics, I'd already be thinking about a monitor arm, as this does support VESA mounting, which could be a lifesaver. But let's be honest, for an affordable asking price, the stand is pretty decent. It does the job. Now let's be real, I really want to emphasize this. This is not going to match an Apple display for materials or feel. And to be honest, KTC aren't pretending it does. But in day-to-day use, it doesn't feel flimsy. It is just practical. When it comes to the ports and connectivity options on the back, we actually have a rather decent amount for the price. You have a USB-C for your video and power delivery of up to 65 watts. So like I said earlier, one cable for the entire setup. Despite that though, you also have a 1.4 display port, a HDMI 2.0, plus USB-A ports and a headphone out. Also, the USB ports on this thing can be quite handy too. They're great for a keyboard, mouse dongle, or something simple, but it's not a proper KVM where your USB devices seamlessly switch between two computers when you change inputs. For a single laptop setup, it's tidy and works well. For a dual PC setup, you may still want a separate USB switch or KVM. But still, for the asking price, it's a nice extra to keep your desktop quite tidy. Now obviously you can connect it into anything, Mac, Windows, mini PCs, whatever really, but the whole point of a monitor like this is the macOS scaling experience. Because when macOS seeks a 5K display, it can do that proper retina-like scaling, where the interface is effectively rendered in a comfortable size, but you keep insane sharpness. Basically, macOS keeps the layout feeling like a 1440p monitor, but because it's a 5K panel, everything just looks super sharp. KTC themselves leans into the idea hard, 5K crisp text with interface sharpness, and specifically mentions it helps with the typical softness you get with certain 4K scaling setups. I think if you find yourself close to a monitor doing a lot of text-based work, this could indeed be a great investment in the long run. We are quoted a pixel density at around 217.57 ppi, which is properly dense for a desktop monitor. And this is the thing, you don't always appreciate how much you stare at text on a monitor. I've had a fair few over the years, and this is my first 5K panel, and to be fair, I don't think I will be going back to anything else. The strain on the eye is nowhere near what you get from a basic panel. Emails, Notion, spreadsheets, coding, Safari tabs, everything just looks cleaner, edges look much more natural. And to be honest, after a day or two, going back to my normal 27-inch 4K monitor right here, well, it kind of feels silly. Color-wise, it is better than you'd expect at this price point. You are looking at a quoted coverage of 100% sRGB and 99% DCI-P3, plus factory calibration claims around Delta E under 2. Now those kind of stats might not mean much to some, but what that basically means is it is positioned as a genuinely useful monitor for creative work at an entry to mid-level too. Is it a full-on reference display? No, not really. But for photo work, video timelines, design work, general creative stuff, it's absolutely usable. I do my fair share of editing, and being able to edit with a sharp timeline and pretty decent color coverage allows you to work quite efficiently. Also, the extra resolution is genuinely useful for editing overall. You can view 4K content and still have room for UI around it. I really can't complain there. Now when it comes to brightness, it is quoted at around 500 nits, and contrast is claimed at around 2000 to 1. Now to be fair, that is higher than a lot of typical IPS panels on paper. HDR is HDR 400, and look, HDR 400, well, is HDR 400. It's the kind of HDR where you can tick the box and see brighter highlights, but it's not that proper HDR experience with deep blacks and local dimming. I will admit the HDR experience isn't a great one, and that's consistent with what you'd expect at this tier and asking price. It's not really its best feature, so if it is something you are interested in, I'd probably look elsewhere. I would treat this as an SDR first monitor that just happens to support HDR. Now let's talk about one of the most interesting parts of this display. In normal use, you can run 5K at 60 Hz. That's the main mode, but if you want smoother scrolling, casual gaming, or just prefer that higher refresh feeling, you can switch to 2560 by 1440 at 120 Hz. Now here's the thing, switching modes isn't like flicking a quick toggle in macOS settings. You do have to do it through the monitor's on-screen menu, and to be fair, the OSD experience is not exactly elegant. It is a little clumsy, and you do have to use this to switch modes. However, for the asking price, once again, it's not really something a lot of people will be too concerned about. For me personally, if you're after this for gaming, it's probably not the best option. However, if your PC does support USB-C at 2560 by 1440 at that 120 Hz, it can be a great way to get the best of both worlds. You've got 5K at 60 Hz for your workflow, and then you can drop it to get the higher refresh rates when you want to game. For basic gaming, it's actually a nice little bonus. If you want to jump into Rocket League, Fortnite, Valorant, whatever really, 120Hz just feels way smoother, and running 1440p makes it much easier for your PC to hit higher refresh rates compared to pushing 5K at 60. Now do keep in mind it's not a hardcore esports monitor or anything, but for casual gaming after work, it's genuinely quite enjoyable. Now when it comes to the pros, the KTC H27P3 gets the fundamentals right. You're getting proper 5K sharpness at 27 inches, solid color coverage, a simple one cable USB-C setup, and a dual mode option if you want smoother motion sometimes. And considering the price at around £250, this is basically filling a gap that barely existed before, because 5K monitors have historically been a completely different price bracket. If you treat it as what it is, an affordable 5K gateway and a studio display alternative for people who care about sharpness more than luxury extras, then yeah, this is genuinely a compelling monitor worth considering in 2026. As always, be sure to check this product out in the link in the description. Let me know what you think. Till next time.